Now we'll add the last cream triangle on the corner here. Line it up, center it, turn it over, and then we'll sew along this line. Okay, just trimming my strings. Trimming my strings. Let's press this. And there we have our corner block. Before we sew these together, we will be trimming the very edge here, leaving us a 1/4 inch seam allowance. That's what the dotted line is for. So you just want to make sure that all your fabrics extend beyond that dotted line. Alright, let's go on to the border. We just have 5 pieces here. Again, I'll turn this over. That's the wrong side, and we glue the wrong side of the fabric to the wrong side of the paper. Just want to make sure it's all covered. Sometimes a quick press helps stick it down. Okay, so I'm going to fold all my lines initially. So we'll start with B2. Well, the first two anyway. B2 and B3, because there won't be any stitches overlapping those two lines. Okay, so B2 and B3. B2, we're going to trim the 1/4 inch. Okay, now here's where you need to figure out which of these goes where. So the final block, according to my color sheet, is I'm going to have 2 oranges on the right and 2 creams on the left. So the one that we want to put on this corner is this triangle. I'm going to fold it over, and you want to make sure that when it's folded over, it's going to cover all the way past this dotted line. So I have to make sure that I'm allowing enough fabric to fold it all the way over. And one thing you can do is fold that paper down, and you can kind of see, not quite through the light, but you can see that now this fabric is going to cover all the way on the B2 triangle. Okay, we're going to flip it over and sew along this line. And I try to get all the seam allowance in, so I'm going to back up quite a bit and start way out in the seam allowance area. Okay. I'm going to fold it over and press it, and that will show whether we covered or not. And see, it does cover all the paper for the B2 space. Okay, let's move on to the B3. Trim the 1/4 inch. Okay, so let's figure out what goes here. So the 2 creams go here and the 2 oranges go here. So I need this cream here for this B3 spot. And then just based on where I started the previous one, I could figure out where to start this one. And now we're going to sew along this line, starting back in the seam allowance and then into the block. And then out through the seam allowance. Trim that dog in. Okay, let's press that over. And I'll clean up all my threads later. They'll get trimmed off when we trim the block. Okay, so that's coming along. Now we need to do B4 and B5. So B4 has previous stitches, so we need to tear the paper away. And just be careful tearing that so you don't make a big rip in your paper. Same thing for B5. Pull the paper away from the previous stitches. Alright, let's start with B4. And trim the 1/4 inch. Okay, so this is going to be a cream piece according to my coloring page. So that's the one that's going to go right there. There. And so what I'm doing is I'm just making sure that I'm overlapping this little point here is overlapping my seam allowance. So I know when I fold it over, it will cover up the whole section. Okay, I'm going to press this. And now we're going to fold over the B5. Fold in the B5 line, and you'll see if I don't fold those little bitty pieces over, it's no big deal. Just end up cutting off a little bit of the paper, but I don't need it anyway. I just need to be able to see my sew line. Okay, and this is our last piece. That's going to go there. That'll complete our border block. Fold it over, line it up, make this corner go past your seam allowance line, flip it over and sew. And I'm just sewing all the way through that fabric just so I can get my threads cut off a little easier. Okay, I'm going to fold that over and press it. And so that is how to do the border block. And again, this one will get trimmed along the dotted lines, and it will sew onto the edge of the center block. So I go back to my design. Where's my block? So this is my center square. This will be one of the borders. I have my other borders done. I trimmed the dog ears, but I haven't trimmed them down yet. But we'll have four corners. And 4 borders. All right, next I'll show you how to sew all those together.